Modifiers can be copied from one object to another. Let's take a look at how that's done. I'm using a file named copy modifier, which can be found in the working files folder. If you select the teapot, then head to the modify column, you'll notice that a stretch modifier has already been applied. Activating the move command and holding down the shift key, let's make a copy of this teapot off to the right-hand side. When the dialog box opens, you can simply click OK. When a copy is made in 3ds Max, anything you've done to the original will carry over to the copy. That would also include, for an example, if you applied a material or even animated the original. Make sure to always remember that in the hopes of improving your production workflow. Now let's clear the stretch modifier off our copy. With the copy teapot selected, in the Modify column, we'll simply right-click on the name Stretch and choose Delete. Okay, one technique to copying a modifier from one object to another is to simply put your mouse on the modifier name, right-click, and when the menu opens, you'll want to choose Copy. You can now select the other teapot, move anywhere into the modifier stack, then right-click again. Up at the top of the menu, you'll notice two different pasting options, Paste and Paste Instanced. Remember, instancing creates a two-way connection between the two objects in question. Changing the modifier on one will also change it on the other. This time around, we'll simply choose Paste. The modifier has been dropped onto the teapot and can now be adjusted. Let's go ahead and remove the modifier again. This time we'll use the commands at the bottom of the modifier stack. Over on the right-hand side, choose Remove Modifier from Stack. Going back to the original teapot, you can also simply use a drag and drop method. With the original teapot selected, head back over to the modifier stack. This time we'll put our mouse on top of the name Stretch, then drag it directly into the view, putting it on the other teapot. When the no sign disappears from your mouse, go ahead and let go. Let's delete the stretch once again. Now, there's a couple of other tricks that you can do when copying and pasting that'll have you using a few options on your keyboard. Let's again return to the original teapot. While dragging, if you hold down the Shift key, the modifier you're working on isn't copied but actually moved to the other object, taking it completely off the original object in the process. Let's undo that using Ctrl-Z. If you instead hold the Control key down as you drag, the copied modifier automatically turns into an instance, giving you the connection or association that I previously mentioned between the two modifiers. Back in the stack, notice the name of the modifier is italicized. That's Max's way of giving you a heads up of the connection that's now been wired in. Now with an instance, changing one will change them both. Let's try the same thing back on the original. Now, if you ever want to break that relationship, you can always just use the Make Unique command found in the row of icons below the stack. With the instance selected, go ahead and click on the Make Unique icon. Once you've done that, notice the name of the modifier is no longer italicized, meaning the connection has now been broken. Now, something else you need to be aware of is when you copy a modifier to another object, that modifier is going to have not just the same settings, but also the same size as it had on the original. Now, most times that's not going to be a problem, but there can be situations when it is. Let's go ahead and delete our second teapot. We're now going to make a smaller teapot in pretty much the same location. With that teapot now made, let's go back to the original and drag and drop the stretch over to the smaller teapot. You'll notice the modifiers not quite fitting the other teapot the same way. When copied over from the original, it arrived in the very same size once it landed on the second teapot. And in a different size, it's tapering the smaller teapot differently. Do you notice that? To change that, we can open up the modifier, get down to the sub-object level, and select the gizmo. The size of the gizmo affects the effect that it has on the object. Watch what happens if we scale the gizmo taller or shorter. Matching the size of the gizmo to the size of the smaller teapot will then give us pretty much the same taper effect as the larger one on the left side. Now we've seen that the gizmo directly affects the geometry within the gizmo. This time, let's move it up and down. Quite a bit of difference that can make. So that'll give you a few things to remember about copying modifiers. Each technique can certainly come in handy, so throw them in your toolbox and put them to use in your next project.